We'll wait just a bit for John and Jay. Cassie, have you heard from Jay?
I have not. He hasn't talked. I'll give him a call though real quick.
All right. John, we get started.
There he is. He's on.
There's Jay. Okay. Give John just another minute and then we'll get started. There he is.
All right, friends, my apologies. I was not able to fix my video.
Welcome, John.
Thank you.
All right. I will call to order the regular meeting of the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners for Monday, July 27th, 2020. And as our practice, we will begin the meeting with a moment of silence. Okay. Jay, would you lead us in the pledge?
I certainly would. Thank you. Would everybody rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Well, the first item of business is to approve the agenda. And then, of course, afterwards, we will get to the consent agenda individually. I would note that there are 2 items that have been added to the consent agenda and 1 to a new business. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mayor Nass, I would also like to make a request if the board is in support. The previous item number 7, which was budget amendment for reimbursement for Vineyard Park system development fee, that was on the consent agenda, and I would like to pull that to either new business or old business, whichever is relevant.
So item 7.
This is the
would then become item number 4 on old business.
That'd be fine.
Old 4, okay. With this, that change, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? All right. Now the next item on the agenda is to either approve or further discuss the consent agenda. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
There have been, I think, many modifications to the minutes that I don't think we've got back yet. So I would recommend that we table those until the meeting on the 10th, just to confirm the various edits that have been put forth are included.
So the motion would be to approve the consent agenda except for tabling the approval of the minutes.
Correct. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? All right. So now we move to the first item of the regular agenda, public hearing on the proposed annexation of Northwood Mupd. Who is taking the lead on that? And have we had anyone sign up, Cassie, to speak?
Mr. Mayor, this is Kaylee Mullins. I'm going to be presenting for
Okay.
the.
Hold up, Kaylee. I need to be able to share the screen, Cassie. Can you make that happen for us?
Are we set?
One second. Okay, you should be good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So we have received a petition requesting annexation. Eco Northwood Mupd LLC would like to annex 4 parcels totaling 91.38 acres where 15501 and Northwood High School Road intersect. Next. The properties are proposed to be served by town utilities. On June 8th, the Board of Commissioners approved Phase 1 of the Northwood subdivision. Next. A public hearing is required to consider the request. The required action, hold the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Do we have anyone signed up to speak for the public hearing?
No, I do not.
I have a question, Kaylee.
Uh-huh.
Is this considered a contiguous annexation or satellite annexation?
I thought it was considered contiguous.
Yeah, Michael, I want to say that the high school that most definitely is in town. And then
Yeah.
across the street, Mosaic and Chatham Park, they're in town as well. So I would consider that to be contiguous, irrespective of the right-of-way of 15501.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Looking at GIS, not even so. Take that for what it is. It doesn't show either of these rights of way being part of the town. And I think the law says that across the street is contiguous, but just wanted to confirm, have that on the record, that it is contiguous and not satellite.
Okay.
And if Mr. Messick is in attendance and would like to correct me or confirm, that'd be helpful.
So often that I do this, but you're correct.
Well, mark the calendar, please. Put that in the minutes. Great, thank you, Paul.
Anything else? Good. Then entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Cassie, were there any citizen matters?
No, sir.
Well, I think I would like to make a motion that we accept this annexation.
You want to do that tonight? You can certainly do that.
Sure.
Make a motion. Second.
So there's a motion to approve this annexation, seconded by Commissioner Baldwin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
A
It's
question.
unanimous.
A question.
Yes, John.
Our practice with Zoom has been that certain public input sessions have extended for 24 hours past the moment we're in.
Yeah, good point.
Is that the case with this matter? And are we fulfilling our obligations properly? Mr. Messick?
I'm not completely sure. The 24-hour rule is for land use issues. I'm not sure whether it covers the annexation or not.
Hmm.
We can certainly bring it back to the board for a consent item on the August 10th meeting. That was our plan all along. And the applicant is aware of that.
Yeah, I in no means do I want to delay the annexation. I support the annexation. I'm just wanting us to dot our I's and cross our T's.
Then would it be appropriate to put it on the consent agenda if we discover that it is a requirement that this 24-hour period be observed?
We can have the ordinance adopting the annexation for you on the 10th. And it would be effective as of the 10th, I think, if you were voted to approve it.
Okay.
So let me be clear here. Then what we'd be voting on is to, or what we voted on was to accept the annexation, but not, but are we moving it to the 10th, the approval?
Having it effective.
I believe you should.
Okay.
All right, so what Mr. Messick is advising is that we wait to approve the annexation until the meeting of the 10th, correct?
Yes, sir. On the consent agenda, if you will.
Yes.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you, John.
So we
The
need
difference is two weeks of taxes.
so we need a motion to delay the approval of the of this annexation until the board meeting of the 10th, where it will be placed on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. So we had no citizen matters, so we're to commissioner updates. Commissioner Fiocco, anything with the EDC? Your other?
Nothing from the EDC or RPO since our last meeting. Can update us on Main Street. I think if you're downtown near the courthouse, you'll know that the Welcome Center is just about finished on the exterior. The interior is going through a punch list process, so making sure that we got everything the contractor and Main Street Pittsburgh agreed to do on the inside. And there is a beautiful mural ongoing on the north wall of the Welcome Center and the east facing wall of the adjoining building, owned by Eddie Thomas, kind enough to let us spread that mural onto his building. Starting discussions with several folks on additional facade improvements since we've passed our budget. Blue Dot New Horizons are looking to talk with us about making some improvements. And the PBA and Main Street Pittsburgh are still planning for next year. Doesn't look like things are going to be happening this year. On Summerfest, didn't happen. Pepperfest, local on Main. Tree lighting is still to be decided. Probably we'll make a call whether that's a live tree lighting or perhaps a Zoom lighting of some sort. That call will be made in September. So that's what I have.
Okay. Commissioner Baldwin, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Shipp?
Just one, yes, the Pittsburgh Boys and Girls Club Steering Committee first meeting is on this Thursday. It'll be over Zoom, and I think a lot of the people on this call will be involved as well. So excited to get that kicked off and moving.
Great. Commissioner Bondage?
Where's the link, Kyle? Where's the link for the Boys and Girls Club meeting?
I'll send it out to the board again. I'm confused working in Outlook on the web. I'm trying not to blast everybody every time I send it out again, but I'll send it out.
Okay.
Thank you, Kyle. Commissioner Shipp, I would also like to have that link.
Okay.
Yes, the Chatham County Climate Change Advisory Committee is in a period of somewhat of reorganization. The chair is polling members, including Town's liaison, as to future directions and priorities, and that's pretty much all I have to report on that. If anyone does have any concerns or additions or requests, please do feed them to me.
Okay. Thank you, John. Commissioner Farrell, anything?
No, sir. No.
Okay. So we move to new business, and the first item on the agenda is the 2020 Street Fair. Mr. Morgan?
Thank you, Mayor. Just would like to get direction from the board on two items. It appears that the street fair is, which is typically on the last week in October, is going to be affected by the COVID-19 virus. So we'd like to ask the board if they wish to cancel that. I would say that unusual, we have not gotten any calls from vendors, so I think vendors have kind of anticipated that it would be closed. And then the second item is I've had some discussions with the Rotary Club, and also understand that the Main Street are interested in administering this program, and want to clarify the board's intent if they wish that to transpire.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Shipp?
No, I'm fine I think we will need to postpone, and I know we talked about, I think both Rotary and Main Street heading that up instead of town staff taking the role they had before. And I'm in favor of all of that.
Yeah, I think it's a preferable arrangement wherever the civic organizations can pick up that work and we can have confidence that it's going to proceed. That takes the burden off town staff, and As town grows and becomes more vibrant, I think that's exactly appropriate.
Right now, town staff has been organizing it and coordinating all of the vendors. And I don't know the process, but it seems to me that the town vets the vendors and whether they're qualified and what their, certain requirements are. And just think that we want to preserve that feel of the fair, or the street fair. And don't know how that does the town stay involved from a vetting perspective to make sure we get the types of vendors and participants that we feel are appropriate.
That's a very good question. I think it may require a deft hand. If we're going to postpone or cancel this year's event, then it's a non-issue. But for next year, we might even need to kind of have all hands on deck just to make sure we have the full complement of vendors and exhibitors. So perhaps we could save that discussion for another day, but wrap it up with the idea that this board does have an interest in participating, perhaps in the form of a board liaison to that organizing committee.
I would also suggest that the first step in this arrangement would be a memorandum of understanding. So the responsibilities of the parties is clear. Yes. And something like that could be put in the memorandum of understanding.
Excellent.
I actually think it's a very good idea to postpone the street fair this year due to the COVID virus, and also to have Main Street and the Rotary Club take the lead on this. I think that's a good idea as well, even though the town staff has done an excellent job with the street fair in the past. So I think they can certainly rely on the town's expertise in reference to handling the next street fair, hopefully, which will be within the next year.
And I would also add that the intent would be to transfer the town's files over to the organizations who's going to take the lead on this. And so they would know the vendors that have participated.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of appears to me that we could do really two things here. The first thing we could do is have a motion to postpone the street fair this year, and then another motion to designate a board, someone, well, how to put this motion, something in the terms of supporting the Main Street and Rotary being involved in the planning and execution of the street fair with town support and liaison from this board.
And I think to develop a memorandum of understanding.
And develop a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the first motion would be to postpone the street fair. So I would entertain such a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. I would then entertain a motion to support the Main Street and Rotary carrying on the planning of the next street fair and the development of a memorandum of understanding between the town and the Rotary Club and Main Street in regard to the street fair.
And who would we have take the lead on the MOU? Would the town initiate?
Town manager, I would suggest take the lead on that.
Yes.
I think that's appropriate too. So let's hand that off to Mr. Kennedy.
Okay.
That was my plan.
Yeah, I saw that look in your eye.
I'm fine with that. This is Chris.
So is there a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right. So the second item Jeff is the Pittsburgh Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. I assume Jeff is going to present on this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, members of
There
the
you go.
public. Tonight, Stephen with Alta Planning is going to give you an overview of the final draft. The town was awarded a bicycle and pedestrian grant in 2018, and in 2019, Alta Planning was selected by NCDOT to head up the town's planning effort to update our pedestrian plan. This new plan actually expands on the plans that we had in the past to include bicycle planning as well. Through the 2019 year, the town selected a steering committee, and we held at least 4 steering committee meetings over the planning period. We had 2 open houses pre-COVID, and we had good attendance in both those times. The presentation tonight is for the final plan, but by no means do you have to vote on the plan tonight. We understand that most of you just saw this for the first time on Thursday or Friday of last week. But Stephen is going to give you a presentation and answer any questions that he can, and I'll be here to answer any that he can.
Thank you,
Stephen,
Jeff.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Great. I'm going to share my screen here with the PowerPoint. Make sure.
Excuse me, Stephen, how do I pronounce your last name?
It's pronounced Zamovsky. It's the B and the Z. You got to say it together like a crazy consonant cluster.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Folks, thanks again for your time tonight. As Jeff mentioned, I had the pleasure to work on the bicycle and pedestrian plan. I'm with Alta Planning and Design, and we are a consulting firm that was selected by NCDOT to work on this project, and it was a blast. I really appreciate it. Quick overview of the planning process that Jeff touched on a little bit. We kicked off this plan back in March 2019. We had 4 steering committee meetings. 2 public open house workshops. The draft plan release workshop was in October. And then the draft document was made available online around the new year. And this past May, things have been pushed back a little bit due to COVID, but we were able to have our last committee meeting via Zoom in May. And here we are today. So thanks again for your time. I'm going to provide an overview of the structure of the document and the process. Feel free to ask questions, as I go along here, or certainly field questions at the end or another date. So, but don't hesitate to interrupt me. This is the executive summary here that you'll find in the beginning of the plan. A couple things I want to emphasize are, really the focus of, thinking about walking and biking as part of the transportation system, not just as a recreation amenity. So, enhancing connectivity community-wide. The downtown core does have a nice sidewalk network for the most part. But thinking about this as more of a transportation element, half of all trips taken in the United States are 3 miles or less, and a good chunk of those, about a quarter, are 1 mile or less. And so it's an opportunity to maximize efficiency with transportation. And certainly another element of economic, local economic diversity and ways that we can improve community health and equity and safety if we do things right, and with an positive environmental impact. And all of these things are part of overall quality of life. So we're trying to hit all these things with these types of plans. And the structure of the recommendations are around programming, policy, and infrastructure. There's, just like a lot of the things that we do are, require a myriad of perspectives and approaches. And so that's the thing that we want to emphasize. It's not just infrastructure. There's also programmatic elements and policy elements that are important to the process too.
Stephen,
Yes.
quick question about those distances you mentioned, about 3 miles and 1 mile. I'm assuming that's following an established roadway system, or is that as the crow flies? You've muted yourself.
Stephen, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
I am pretty sure that is a roadway system analysis, but I'm not 100% sure. I can get back to you on that, John.
Okay.
That's cited on page 8 of the document, those trip distances, if you want to see the full breakout too. And but that's a good question. So regarding the contents of the document, you'll see it's broken into four main chapters. The appendices, I do want to highlight at the bottom there, if you can see my cursor. There is a lot of good information back there regarding design guidance, a funding appendix that outlines, funding opportunities from the federal government, from state, from local, from private nonprofit sector sources. The key thing about a plan like this is that it doesn't require you to dedicate local funding sources, but it's a great opportunity to leverage dollars and go after grants that are out there. One of the first things they'll ask is if you have a plan. And so a lot of good information in the appendices. We try to keep the main chapters succinct and to the point. So, but make sure you're referencing some of that information in the appendix too. Chapter 1 highlights the the overall planning process and structure, and this is where you'll see information on the benefits of walking and biking, specific to health and safety, economy, the environment. There's a lot of good information in there, and as the years go by, more and more studies. I think we intrinsically know the value of walking and biking to health and and all sorts of positive impact for community. But there's a lot of good statistics and studies out there as well, worth referencing. So that's where you'll find that information there. Chapter 2, existing conditions. This is where we take a look at existing walking and biking infrastructure, highlight some of the key opportunities and challenges that we see, from a consultant standpoint, doing field work, and from what we heard from the public in the existing conditions phase, from our steering committee, and an overview of public input. As Jeff mentioned, we had an online public survey and online input map as well. We did 2 public open house workshops, and also a shout out to the Chatham County Health Department and Chatham Health Alliance. They both provided some extra help and boots on the ground to help get the word out, even above and beyond this the process that was online by NCDOT, and had some permanent survey stations at several locations around town. They tabled a few events last summer with an information table with info on the bicycle and pedestrian planning process, and also led a community walkability assessment. So you see some of the summary information from the survey. A lot of people mentioned 15501 out of the 240 plus respondents that we got, and of course 64B East and West Street. And one quick thing I'd like to highlight from the public input is on the right side here. We hear, this is something that we see all over North Carolina and doing these types of projects around the country, is that we're really gearing these walking and biking infrastructure for your average adult, your 12-year-old kid. And as we say, all ages and abilities, and the strong preference is to be physically separated from the roadway. So your greenway trails, your sidewalks, your bike lanes that have some kind of physical buffer to the roadway corridor is going to be the preferable facility. You're going to have your percentage of the population that you'll see those folks out there on bikes riding on East Street or West Street or up Hillsborough Street, and packed with traffic. That'll get out there, but the vast majority of the population is really going to take advantage of something that is separated from the roadway system, and so something to shoot for, in moving forward.
Excuse me, Stephen. Pamela, I have to step out for just a second. So if the mayor's needed, will you take over for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And shall I continue here, or shall I wait for James?
No, continue, please.
Chapter 3 here is where you'll see the recommendations. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, the aim here is to really approach this not from just infrastructure, but making sure policy is recognizing the importance of walking and biking, in addition to programmatic efforts that are help encourage a culture of walking and biking and think of it as something that's a normal part of the transportation system. There's a lot of good opportunities through the bike-friendly community program, walk-friendly community program. There's safe routes to school resources, integrating education elements into the local curriculum regarding bicycling and walking, and Watch for Me NC program. A lot of good things to choose from, especially in this time with COVID-19, and we're seeing NCDOT and local government budgets taking a tough hit. Sometimes some of these programs that can be run through capacity, staff capacity, or perhaps committee members that want to participate. And I'll get to that in a second. Could be things to move forward in the near term. Chapter 4 dives into implementation. And so this is where you'll see a set of action steps that can be taken to, after this planning process is completed, some steps that can be taken by the board and coordinating with other agencies as well. And, looking for funding dollars out there and beginning to gauge programs. One thing I want to mention, and this is something we talked about in our last committee, and that Jeff and I have discussed a little bit, is designating an advisory committee to help lead implementation for this plan. And so we have had a few committee members volunteer to help be a part of making that steering committee live on. We had 3 folks raise their hands so far, and this is something, if it's possible, to shoot for in the communities where we see the most progress regarding bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. In North Carolina and around the country is ones that do have some kind of organized group that is meeting, whether it's quarterly or twice a year, and making sure that there's coordination between departments and NCDOT, and helping with things like filling out applications to the bike friendly community program can help move a lot of things forward. So something to consider. And speaking of the bicycle friendly community program, just one thing I want to point out: this is a program that was highlighted and talked about it a lot by our committee. Is it's a recognition program, but it also helps you kind of monitor, keep an eye on what kind of metrics to shoot for as far as infrastructure per capita, education programs within the school system, and metrics to shoot for specifically. So it's not only is it a good recognition program and something that can generate excitement, but it's also one that helps you measure progress and how you're doing, especially compared to other communities, and gives some good benchmarks. So this plan will help lay out some steps to get there, and this is a good program that can help keep you on track. So just something worth pointing out. And one of the metrics too is do you have an advisory committee, as you see on the right hand side there. And so that's administered through the League of American Bicyclists, and something we would recommend engaging. And same with there's also a separate walk-friendly community program. This is administered through the UNC Highway Safety and Research Program. So it's just down the road from you guys in Chapel Hill, and it's a very helpful program in the same with the similar structure to the bike-friendly community program. So just a couple things I wanted to point out within the document there, but that's an overview. I'm going to end the presentation right there. If folks have any questions, now or any questions in the future, certainly don't hesitate to reach out, and we can coordinate certainly with Jeff too.
Yeah, one of the things I'll point out that's a little bit different than our current PED plan is is in the document is the cost estimates of our priority projects, which will help us whenever we go for funding with DOT. That was sort of always an issue for us when we get ready to submit a project, is we didn't really have a good estimate, and we would have to sort of ask the engineer on staff to help us come up with an estimate. But this will certainly put us a leg up to compete for pedestrian funding, bicycle funding for projects in Pittsburgh. And that was one of the impetus to redo our PED plan, was to have these priority projects identified and to have in the document an estimate of those projects.
Jeff or Stephen, how long do you think those cost estimates would be serviceable?
That's a great question. And I would look at it as a function of the economy. We have seen, prices in the past decade have certainly gone up as the economy, recovered from, the housing crisis back in, 08, 09. And prices really jumped, especially the last few years, because a lot of construction firms, they were so busy, everyone was bidding high. And so that's the kind of cost that we're seeing. We're seeing higher costs in general. I think now that COVID has hit, I think the story has changed, and some of those prices in there, I would tend to think that demand is probably going to drop a little bit. So you're probably going to see a drop in prices to some degree. But like I said, these prices are based on pre-COVID estimates with our engineers take a look at DOT's average prices, and so there's a lot of good information that goes into them. But I would just remember that they are pre-COVID estimates.
Yeah, Michael, I think what we would do is certainly, as the further we get away from this estimate, this approval, we would have to readjust these numbers. And whenever the town has a town engineer again, it will be easier for that person to take a look at what was estimated before and to give us an update on what that could be. But it sort of gives us a thought process of what that project could cost. And that was what was lacking in the past. It was just an idea of what a project cost.
Mm-hmm. But it's a better baseline than nothing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One question on versions. Originally, there was a draft circulated, and then there's a version on the website, and then a version that we got. So can you talk about the differences between those versions?
Yeah, and Kyle, thank you for bringing that up. There's our last committee meeting when we presented and discussed the updates to incorporating NCDOT comment, public comment, and all the review period comments. That draft was posted in May online, and that's still the version that you see on the planning department's website. But during that last meeting, we decided to add a couple pages to Appendix E to highlight some of the opportunities regarding COVID-19 and social distancing with respect to open streets. There are some cities around the country that have used their shortest shared street, neighborhood street network to particularly those cut-through streets like a Salisbury Street, where you close that street off to through traffic. As simple as putting a sign up there and just saying local traffic only, and it encourages a little bit less automobile traffic and makes it a little bit more inviting for bicyclists and pedestrians. So you'll see those pages in there.
Okay, thank you. And then the approval process or the implementation action talks about approval by NC Integrated Mobility. Has that been approved by them, or what's the timeline?
Yeah, so they have their process is the Integrated Mobility. And just to clarify too, they were formerly called the Division of Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation, but they are, as of 2020, I think it happened this year, they're now called the Integrated Mobility Division. What they do is they're the funder of this project. Catherine Zerang with their division was part of our committee, and she reviewed the planning process, provided comments back in the spring along with the public input period. And so those are already incorporated in the project, and they have signed off on it at this point and then have given their review.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any other questions for Stephen?
I guess, just a comment in general that I did start reviewing this before, but it is a lot to review in the time that we've had it. So personally, I would like to have some more time to review. Lots of good information in here. Looks good overwhelmingly, but I would like to personally delay till next month or next meeting if there's any other questions or things about it. And then I guess if appropriate, if I could, I don't know the best way to get those questions through Jeff to go to your, if I can just work with.
Kyle, if you just provide comments to me, I can get them to Stephen and we can work through that. You know, Stephen's contract essentially with DOT is his final activity in this process, but Stephen is willing to you know, make some edits to the document, and if you know, if it's wholesale changes that we need to you know, think about, then we're going to have to talk a little bit more about those.
Sure, I don't see anything like that. Just a couple of things to review, I think. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, just provide those to me.
I share that interest as well. Definitely want to be able to dig into the document that you know, this weekend's just not enough time. So yeah, I appreciate the suggestion, and I would make a motion we table it until the 10th. I think that's our meeting, right? August 10th?
Yes.
Yeah, this is John Bonnet, so I can strongly second that motion. And I agree. It's just from what I had perceived through the process and some of the work product that I saw earlier on was very impressive and obviously very, very helpful. And I'm really looking forward to diving into it deeper so that if any final questions arise, I can send those to you. And Steve and I very much appreciate your willingness to entertain some last questions. And Jeff, thank you so much for stewarding the process. And I guess the motion is on the floor.
The motion is to table approval until our next meeting, and it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, and so we thank you very much for being tonight with us on Zoom, and we look forward to spending a little more time with the obviously very, very complete and well thought out report. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all for the time. It was a pleasure working for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
The next item on the agenda is the sewer allocation request from Chatham County Animal Shelter and Central School System buildings. And Jeff, I assume you're presenting?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let me bring up my screen here. Let's start. Okay, thank you. Really, item 3 and 4 can be talked about at the same time. They're essentially, the town has received 3 sewer requests, 2 from Chatham County and 1 from a property owner located at 882 Thompson Street. The 882 Thompson Street item is for 360 gallons. The property owner would like to build a duplex at this location, and previously, I think it was maybe last year, this location received an allocation for 360 gallons to build a single family house, and the applicant is submitted a zoning compliance to build a duplex, which is a permitted use at 882 Thompson Street. Moving on to the county, it's a little different. The applicant is requesting 1,260 gallons of sewer for the expansion of the Chatham County Animal Shelter. The town previously approved an allocation back in March of 2015. That allocation did expire in 2018 when the building permits had not been issued. The county is anticipating fewer boarding units than in the past, so that's why the lower number is there. Chatham County Schools is moving their, or Chatham County Central Services Building is moving to this location on out 64 on Renaissance Drive, and they're requesting 3,100 gallons of sewer for this new building out there. sort of lay out the request, and then I will want to walk you through the sewer as of May 2020. And this was a summary and a sort of a snapshot look that Hydrostructures, Becky Smith with Hydrostructures did for the town in lieu of having an engineer. And essentially, when you get to the bottom line of the town's remaining allocation to grant on paper, we have just a hair over 47,000 gallons of sewer. And that's at the 110% allocation that the board last year said that you were comfortable going to. So with this request, I think it's a little over 5,000 gallons or so. Maybe it's even less than that, 3,000 gallons. Yeah. We just have a little, we'd have 42,000 gallons or so after that. Any questions so far on where we stand with sewer as of today? Okay. In the guidelines that the town, go ahead.
Jeff, yeah, I got a question. What is approved allocations not yet permitted? I guess that's something that's been, what's the difference between that and paper flow?
I think the approved allocations that is just you've granted an allocation to a project that has not submitted paperwork for an extension or a permit from the state for sewer. That's how I believe that to be.
Okay, so that's not, I mean, I always understood that to be paper flow, but maybe it's our paper flow, not the state's paper flow.
Right. I think that's where we are. So with the 47,000 gallons per day that we have remaining, and these numbers were updated again as of May using DMRs from 2019. We were using 2018 numbers, and if we recall, 2018 was wet. So our numbers fluctuated a little bit, but not so great that we gained a whole lot. So we've always sort of been working around this 47,000 gallon, 50,000 gallon range. And as the guidelines point out, projects that need sewer need to come before the board for approval, even if they're for a small amount, 360 gallons. The county request is a little outside of the guidelines that was approved, but that's okay. You've approved sewer for the county in the past. That's outside of the town limits and even outside of the ETJ of the town. So there is a little precedence that's been set with granting sewer. I think that there's a force main that runs from this county complex back to town, and that's where the sewer would be going to would go to these projects. Staff is recommending approval. It's a small amount. We do have projects in the queue, and those are outlined in your memo. One that we'll be talking about shortly, which is the Robertsons Walk project, and the Griffin Farm project that requires about 35,000 gallons, 36,000 gallons of sewer. And there's constantly projects coming in. Last week we had a hotel that was submitted for town, and they're going to require some sewer. But we're all hopeful that we're going to get some more one day. So those issues will be taken care of if we in fact, do get to Sanford, and Chatham Park does build their plant and is able to discharge at our current location.
Mr. Jones, a minor point of curiosity brought up by this matter. The Thompson Street location duplex, is that intended to be a tear down with construction of a brand new duplex? There's a small structure there, isn't there?
I don't know that to be the case. I know that they've recently subdivided this parcel off of a larger piece, larger parcel. So the structure that's there now may be on the remaining piece of that property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's correct. I think this parcel is vacant and they split it from the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that subdivision occurred some time ago.
The subdivision, they did do a recent line adjustment to meet the street frontage for a duplex or a two-family home. They had to increase their street frontage, but it was a recombination, just a line movement from the adjacent property. I think the line moved a foot.
At some point in that process, they received an allocation for a single-family residence.
They did. That's correct.
Right.
Jeff, in terms of the kind of first come, first serve nature of this, when were these submitted or when does that date count?
These were submitted within the last month. And so they would be, but they are at the point, at least with the Thompson Street request, they are at the point of a permit being needed from the town. Others in the process may be still in the review. And then the county's request is outside of the guideline policy.
Okay. So that's very helpful, Mr. Jones, because, I think the big question here is, well, a lot of questions are raised as to the county's plans long-term for continued operations in town or continued movement out of town. And I know that this has been a subject that the board has spoken about before, and I think we all share this concern about county staff no longer being working out of town or inside the town limits. But it's the bigger question of coordination, and there's so many areas where we could be coordinating better, and looking forward to our new manager, Mr. Kennedy, engaging because of his prior relationships with the county. But I am curious if we might proceed with the allocation for 882 Thompson Street and just pause for deeper conversation regarding the county animal shelter and county school system building request.
John, that's a good point. And I think not only do we conceivably lose employees coming to work on a daily basis in the town limits and having an impact on the economy in which way that employees do on a local area, but also the people that come in from out of town to do business with that entity or those employees that, generates additional economic impact that is unique to a county seat. This is a big office building. It's 120 employees. It's a lot of function, and it's a lot of opportunity for local businesses to take advantage of that audience. So I too am very concerned about facilities leaving the corporate limits of Pittsburgh and even the ETJ.
And if I could chime in, if I understand things correctly, the decision, particularly on the school administration office, was made without any notice or consultation in any way, shape, or form with the Pittsburgh board or the mayor at that time, or et cetera. And it would seem to me, as the county seat, at the very least, there would be discussions between county and town regarding those kinds of activities.
Mayor, I believe the county manager is in the meeting if you have any questions for him.
No, it's just more of a comment of our ongoing relations. If we're going to act as the county seat and be the county seat of Chatham County, it would be nice to have a little more coordination or at least discussion on some of these kinds of items.
I'd like to hear from the county manager if he's available to speak.
Before you do that, let me say a few things if I could, Kyle.
Sure.
Okay, now, Mr. Jones indicated that this request falls outside of the guidelines which were approved in October of 2019. So, Mr. Jones, are you specifically talking about that the statement where the priorities should be on within the town city limits? Is that what you're referring to there?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, great. So also, back when we actually approved the sewer line to go down to Renaissance Drive years ago, there was a resolution in 2012. Do we have a copy of that resolution to review to see exactly what that indicated and was approved?
I'm not privy to that, Pam, but I'm sure we could find that for you.
Okay, all right. If you could get that for the board so we can look at that also. And you know, this does present some concerns. I'll put it that way in reference to moving out the Renaissance Drive from downtown. So I'm very concerned about that as well.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
So I would like to say we appreciate the coordination that we've had with the town. We have now currently county facilities at that location that also serve, many of them serve needs of the town as well, including solid waste and recycling, animal services, water maintenance is out there. That doesn't serve the town, of course. We have a joint use garage that is our county fleet, as well as a school bus garage there, which, you know, we moved out of the facility in Pittsburgh, and now Chatham Transit is in that location, which is a benefit to many of our residents here, as they were struggling for a location to have their facility. As far as moving out of the town, the central services, I will point out this is only 4 miles outside of town. We fully expect, my anticipation is this will be part of the town in a number of years as the annexation continues to grow. I apologize if there was any lack of communication about that at the time. We had an opportunity to purchase this property. We also are moving an emergency operations center out there, which will actually be on septic, which also, that is something that we partner with the town on that with 911 and our emergency operations center. Our intention is that property where Central Services is we felt that I strongly feel that's a pretty good facility or location for commercial development for the town, which is a tax base. Some of the other discussion about the, maybe I guess this was referred to Commissioner Bonnetts and Commissioner Fiocco about maybe the Annex Renovations. I believe that may have been what you were referring to earlier. That is not even on the books in our CIP at this point. We have looked at that remodel of that site, and you may have seen some of those earlier designs really didn't open up that view shed between the courthouse and the Justice Center that was wanted by everyone. And it still came in at about $56 million at that point, which puts it pretty far out in our CIP. We have since redesigned that to see if we could open up that view shed between the two for a nice town park there. And it would be it would require us to have about a 4-story parking deck to accommodate parking and the building, and pushing that as far east as we could. So that being said, that plan is still just a future project in our CIP. So I don't want anyone to be concerned that there's some imminent move of county staff from downtown around the circle out to this location. That is not a short-term plan for sure. It is our CIP is a 7-year CIP, and it's not even started yet. This project is not even slated to be in that CIP yet. So I hope that relieves some of that. I would ask if you could consider the two separate at this point. Animal services is we're trying to move forward with animal services expansion as soon as possible. We're able to reduce that flow almost by half with some redesign, and that delayed us on getting that project started, which we previously, as was pointed out by Mr. Jones, we had previous approval for that allocation. We have built, we have the detention facility out there that has a pump station. We built a new pump station associated with the fleet and bus garage that serves the solid waste, all of those facilities there, and even did an extension as part of that project to the animal shelter for gravity sewer. So we would love to be able to proceed with that. And I'd be happy to provide any other information, answer any questions about any of this development, any plans that we have. I'm happy to discuss any of that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. LaMontagne. That was very informative and helpful, and I'm grateful to you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Bonnets, if I could just point out one more thing.
Yes.
So with the central services, their need to move, they have some of their staff at Horton Middle School, and they're stressed with space in that school. That's why they need this new facility to expand and move some of that central services people out of that. That being said, this project, we're looking to have bids in hand on this project this time next year. So we're going to go to borrow for this project, for the Central Services project and the Emergency Operations Center at the same time, which would be in July of 21. So this project won't come online until 22. If that helps at all with your decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's helpful additional information, and I very much appreciate also your suggestion that the animal shelter portion of this request might be peeled off and considered immediately. You know, and maybe as a good faith effort, that's what we ought to do tonight. I think, you know, it's probably just a testament to how busy we all are, and certainly town staff and town management and this board have been so very busy just with Chatham Park and all of our other priorities with a robust plan for growth that we haven't gotten back to those quarterly meetings that we did on a couple of occasions, and I think really benefited from. But I think that it would be useful to hear from the county about your long-range plans, you know, a full work session to understand whether or not the downtown campus idea is in any way still viable or things like that. And I don't want to put you on the spot for an immediate answer. I guess I just want to express the hunger for more of those types of coordinated meetings. And I'm confident that Mr. Kennedy will help us bring that about. I know that you're willing and eager, and I very much appreciate that attitude. I can imagine that, as you mentioned, some of those properties could potentially have a much higher value much higher use as mixed use, for example. And I'm eager that we have those conversations with this board as we start to envision how our town will change with your new capital improvement plans. So I guess that's the request that I would make is, of course, I'd like to hear other commissioners and the mayor chime in, but I think that we might consider the Chatham County Animal Shelter portion right now and then talk about that central school system section.
Dan, I've got a question. You mentioned the emergency services being on septic. Is there adequate soil for septic for the other facility?
The location where we're trying to put the central services is actually on the north side of a creek. There's not as, it's kind of separate from the portion where the Emergency Operations Center will be. And we're building that EOC with that septic system because we didn't want to tax the system. We are aware of your concerns with wastewater and water. So we didn't want to tax it anymore, but the location that we're trying to do it as close to Renaissance Drive as possible for both of these facilities so that we don't have to expend additional taxpayer dollars to get deeper in the site. It makes more sense for the facilities, central services site to have a grinder pump to the pump station that then gets into the force main. As I pointed out, I wanted to say too, along the lines of coordination, I have to say, I feel like we've been coordinating on staff level. I feel that we've been coordinating with the town very well. We had the master plan for the water and sewer. The county paid $89,000 for that study, of which Pittsburgh, we did that for the towns, and we took the bulk share of that. Pittsburgh paid $6,600 for that study. We paid $89,000 for that. We also participated with the town in a interconnection study prior to that to see which type of connections to our system we could do to get more water for the town of Pittsburgh. We worked with Pittsburgh on the Western Intake Partners. We worked with Pittsburgh on the Jordan Lake Partnership before that. And we have continued to keep Pittsburgh through the transition between some of your engineers when Fred Royal left and before Elizabeth came in. We kept Pittsburgh in the conversations with Sanford for their water plant expansion that we determined we did not need, but we stayed in the discussions for that, not knowing what Pittsburgh's future needs might be, or when you did get an engineer. We also kept the town in the Western Intake Partners. And then when Elizabeth came on staff, we briefed her on what had been occurring through that. We have partnered with the town as well. We do all the building inspections, fire inspections, and erosion control. We have a great interlocal agreement, I feel, that works really well. I think our staff work really well together. So I just want to make that point that I don't want to feel like we're not communicating and just being isolated. I feel that we have a lot of interaction with the town, and I feel that we've coordinated very well. Some of these long-range plans that really aren't very well formed yet is really the thing. We're also partnering with the town on town hall. We put $450,000 towards that purchase, and we're ready to move our elections and our health department into that. So anxious to see that lease come. We'll figure out the lease on that and then move forward with the construction. So anyway, I'm sorry I rambled a little bit, but.
No, it's spot on, Mr. Lamontagne, and I want to apologize that my video is not working because you're not seeing me nodding vigorously. I definitely agree. I think there's been really commendable efforts from the county's behalf, county's direction, and I'm grateful for it. And I use the word hunger intentionally. I'm hungry for more of that and more coordination from our side. So I thank you for it. I've said my piece, and I'd love to hear more commissioners speak up.
I do look forward to working with Mr. Kennedy.
I was going to say, Dan and Mr. Bonnets, Dan and I actually corresponded over the last couple of days about trying to get something set up between he and I to make sure that we can build that relationship that we so desperately seek, and to make sure that we're both in lockstep. We obviously have jurisdictional boundaries, excuse me, that we both adhere to, and certainly different priorities with those. But I look very much forward to working with Dan, the rest of the county, to try to make conversations like we're having right now be somewhat of a thing of the past, so we can move forward all together towards mutual benefits.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Dan, I appreciate your commentary, and I think we definitely want to work with the county in all kinds of different ways that I think are pressing matters for Pittsburgh and Chatham County. I'll say, though, that this particular movement of this facility feels like a structural change and something that, I haven't processed, and I'm not sure I support it. And we've got woefully a tiny amount of sewer capacity remaining. And so I think I'm going to need to take a longer, harder thought on this matter. And I don't think I can support it this evening. I need to get some more information. So, but I appreciate all the things that we are working together on. This one just kind of caught me blindsided.
Could if I'm sorry if I may speak, Mayor.
Yes, absolutely, Dan.
Commissioner Fiocco, that sounds fine. I would like to know what questions you have. I'll be happy to get any information you need.
Okay. I will reach out to you.
Okay. And I know when we were talking about this, Commissioner Dasher was the chair of our Board of Commissioners at the time, and we were talking about that. I know there's interest on our part that that location where Central Services is looks like a great, I think, Commissioner Shipp was just saying, a great location for potential mixed use and maybe affordable housing in this location next to the school for teacher housing there. We also, in the future, plan to be, at some point, the sheriff's office will be moving out by the detention center, and that's been the plan since the detention center was built. I don't mean to throw a surprise at anyone. Again, that's not even a future project in our CIP. But looking forward, we felt that that's in the future, that could be a great commercial strip right along there. So for tax base for Pittsburgh. And we do feel what's good for the town is good for the county. And I say that repeatedly with my staff. So I want you to know that we think that way. What's good for the towns is good for the county.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
I would say that I wouldn't mind delaying until next meeting if we have some questions that need to be answered. But I'm a little leery of the approach overall of withholding an allocation for some type of greater coordination. I think that coordination it takes two parts, and we've had a lot of change in the last 6 months, and I'm not sure where that falls on necessarily. I do think there's a lot of advantage to the property that the county currently has in the town of Pittsburgh, and current uses and potential future uses for that. So I'm very interested in working, with the county on a lot of things, and maybe it's even a formal task force of groups within each party that talk about the land and future plans and movement and things like that. I think there's a lot of value there, but I think to think that we would stop this move from happening by withholding this is not going to happen. And so I think it's fair to get questions answered, but I think there's a different approach to communication and coordination that we could take versus withholding sewer capacity.
And I will say I'm happy to answer questions from anyone, anytime.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. And I do want to say that since I've assumed being mayor, I've been able to work very closely with Chair Howard at the county on a number of different things, and several related to the COVID-19 issues and problems. And that has been a very, very good relationship, and I want to point that out. But it seems to me that there's a couple ways for us to go here. First is to table both of the county requests until next meeting, or to approve the animal shelter one and table the other one. So I don't know what the pleasure of the board is here.
I'll make a motion to approve the sewer allocation for the animal shelter.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, John Bonnets.
Okay.
And I guess in discussion, Michael, was that one of the ones you had? Do you have questions on both of them or just on the central services?
Yeah, the central services primarily. I just had some other questions about the animal shelter that I didn't have an opportunity to do any research on. So I was comfortable. I don't think it's a critical matter that it be done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I was going to take some time to do some backup research. So that would be my preference, but we've got a motion and a second. So
I'm happy to amend the motion, but I guess I'd like to know what time frame you're thinking about and what time frame the county is looking for, specific for the animal shelter that he
I would think
soon.
for the animal shelter, the next meeting for certain.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to take up the animal shelter approval next meeting.
All right, so the motion is to table the request for sewer allocation for the animal shelter until our next meeting.
And my second stands.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, hold on. All right, unanimous. Then there's a, is there any motion to request for the services? Just to table that for the time being, or what's your pleasure?
Mayor Noss, you broke up a bit, but I think that you were asking for further motions. And I think Commissioner Shipp made a very good point that withholding sewer allocation is probably not the best way to go about getting greater coordination, because especially I think this relationship has been rather imbalanced. And out of a gesture towards good faith and gratitude, frankly, for the work that county has been doing to keep town's interests in mind, I would first like to ask if we can hear any further thoughts from Commissioner Baldwin and Commissioner Farrell, but I do have in mind a motion for the central services allocation request.
Thank you, John. I'll have to agree with the mayor. I was a little, when this, several months when this came up about the school board moving out of town as a downtown business owner, it was really a shock to me. I definitely want to make sure the county and the town is working together. I personally don't see any withholding the sewer allotment right now. I don't think that's going to make any, I guess, don't rock the boat too much, but I think we could, 2 weeks is not going to make much difference. I think we're going to approve the sewer allocation. I would just like to see, Dan, a little better communications, because I heard regarding the 200 acres the county bought out there for the school board on the streets of Pittsburgh. So that was shock to me.
Well, that was an opportunity we had. That property owner was willing to sell, and they had a whole bunch of heirs. Actually, when I first heard about that property back, you may remember, Jay, when we were doing the landfill study, and that property came up for sale, and we felt like there was a great opportunity to get some land for whatever future needs the county has. I kind of feel
these employees heading out of town. I mean, they're not going to drive 4 to 5 miles back into town for lunch when they can come a couple of blocks and eat downtown. But that's all good. We're going to make this communication better, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I used to work out at the solid waste facility out on Renaissance Drive, and we came to Pittsburgh to eat. There's nowhere else. I'm telling you, downtown Pittsburgh is the closest place. And I had discussions with Dr. Jordan as well, the superintendent. He was saying, where else are they going to go?
Well, and I'll jump in here too, Mr. LaMontagne, to echo that, because the county's land use plan does very intentionally focus its desire for growth in the towns and several specific corridor locations. And I really appreciate that. And so I think that it is likely that the lunch crowd will still come into town. I'd rather look at this glass half full and look towards the future where we can envision, hopefully together, a vibrant commercial activity on some of the sites that are currently occupied by town governance, which is essentially nonprofit. And we're not generating tax revenue from it. It will hurt a little bit in the short term. I don't know that it'll hurt any worse than this pandemic. But Jay, I'm sympathetic. Commissioner Farrell, I really am sympathetic. I'm glad to hear you saying that maybe we ought to just hold this until 2 weeks from now. But Commissioner Baldwin, I'm very curious to hear from you as well.
Well, basically, I still would like to see that resolution from 2012 as I requested. And I don't think anyone is holding a sewer allocation back just because we don't want anyone to move. I think we had some specific guidelines that was approved in October of 2019, indicating that we wanted to actually look inside within the city limits. So, but I still do have that concern of this Board of Education going out of the city limits. That's still my concern, and we are losing in terms of those individuals. I would prefer for them to be in town, but of course, that's not what seems to be happening. In terms of animal shelter, that's fine, but that Chatham County Central Services, that is somewhat of a big, and also, I didn't really hear about this. It would have been better to know about it before we actually, for sure, before we actually had it in our packet. If someone could have reached out to the mayor even and let him know, okay, this is a heads up in terms of what we are considering, that would have been good. So, but I did not know, there are always rumors which are going around. However, I did not know that this was actually to be a possibility of moving on to Renaissance Drive for the Chatham County Central Services.
We have, so we've passed a motion to table the animal center, rescue center, to our next meeting. What do you want to do in terms of handling the central services request tonight?
I move the exact same motion for the central services allocation request, 2-week delay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 2 votes. Jay, did you vote?
Aye.
Aye, Jay?
Yes, aye.
Okay.
That's 3.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes, I said, I indicated yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fiocco?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous then. So the other item then is separate from this, but was referenced in Jeff's presentation, and it's the sewer allocation request for 882 Thompson Street. Any questions for Jeff or discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
3. Okay. Jay?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
aye.
Unanimous. All right.
Mayor,
Thank you.
If I could just add to the conversation, when I first started, I met with the county manager, and he did make me aware that these two requests would be coming to the town. I wasn't in tune with the sensitivity that the board might have to that. So I may be the disconnect in the communication on these projects to the board. So I just wanted to add that to the record.
Thank you, Bob. All right.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
next
Park.
item is the Robertsons Walk MUPD presentation. Is that you, Jeff?
Yes, Mayor, that's me. I'll give a brief overview, and then the applicants will give an overview of their plans. Since early last year in 2019, staff has been working with the Halley Building Group and McAdams, their engineers and planners, to review an MUPD for land that is along Industrial Park Drive. This is Industrial Park Drive here, and East Street. This land historically was rezoned to a MUPD in the past of Pittsburgh Place. And early on, this project was utilizing that same name, but has since went to Robertsons Walk. The plan for the MUPD that's before us, that's been reviewed, is for a number of, I want to say, how many units do we have here? Around 900 residential units and around 50,000 square feet of non-residential. The plans have been reviewed to the MUPD part of the ordinance, and for the most part, everything's been acceptable. We got to a point where the one item in the MUPD ordinance was a difficult item to overcome, and that was the wastewater provision in the ordinance. And the applicant does understand that the town is does have limited supply, and has proposed a development agreement that would cover some ideas that they have on how to handle sewer for this project. I will turn it over to the applicant and let them give a presentation. This is an informal presentation. If the applicant receives feedback, positive feedback, there would then we would go into a formal process of a public hearing for the MUPD, a planning board recommendation, and then a approval or decision by the town board. The applicant through the process will most likely, one, talk about tonight, and then in the future would be to have the development agreement sort of encompass all of the approval process, the MUPD, sort of the zoning of the project, any utility or other plans or agreements that the town and the applicant agree to. And so that development agreement would be the document that would sort of govern the project. I'll turn it over to the applicant, and I can answer any questions as we go along as well.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Rifkin with the Robertsons Walk MUPD. I'm Assistant Vice President for the Halley Companies, who purchased the property at the end of 2018. You all probably may recall this as the Pittsburgh Place large commercial project, and that has substantively changed, and that's why we're here. I heard a lot of conversation this evening regarding communication and advance notice of things, and so I feel that this could not be any timelier on our part to introduce the project to those of you who we've not spoken to and reintroduce it to the couple we have. I'll say thank you to Jeff, staff, and the town attorney for all their help and work with us over the past 2 years that we've been working on this project. It's taken a lot of time to get it in a very polished form. not only the project itself, but the developer's agreement. As an introduction to the project, it's a 212-acre parcel just off of Business 64, about a mile from downtown, from the traffic circle. We are proposing to put about 900 units and up to 50,000 square feet of commercial, which is a large sewer number that we are understanding the town does not have at this point. We probably about a year ago were given guidance from staff to look into a developer's agreement as a method to figure out how to deal with wastewater. So the developer's agreement we've been working with the town to put together has laid out various different options of what can be done. Don't necessarily need to go into all of those now, but happy to delve further if anyone is interested. We've gotten to the point where we really only have but a handful of items potentially left for the town attorney to review on the developer's agreement. And barring that, have cleared the comments of staff and thus thought it was a great point to come to the board, make the introduction of myself, Laura Holloman, who's also on the call with McAdams, and the Robertsons Walk Mupd. So I just wanted to quickly introduce ourselves, say thank you for giving us the opportunity, and if there were any questions, please feel free to ask, and I look forward to speaking with everyone further.
Any questions or discussion?
Just a question. Looking at this document, I noticed that it's different than the one that was in our packet, and not having the ability to, look at it any closer than the screen shows. Wondering, are there any, what the extent of the differences are between what's on the screen and what we had in our packet? The one we have in our packet still calls it Pittsburgh Place. And makes mention of a site amenity that is no longer appearing on this diagram.
Yeah, Eric, we received this that's on the screen just a little bit late to get into the packet, so I was trying to utilize the last one that I had. And I thought that I'd grab the one that was the most recent in our files, but I guess there's been some changes.
Yeah, and I don't know if like the table includes different numbers. Don't know how important that is at this time. I think it's a substantial project either way.
Yeah.
Let me just add that Laura Hall with McAdams, as Mr. Rifkin mentioned, just to kind of explain the changes, obviously the name change was one, utilizing kind of the local vernacular with the floodplain that's nearby of Robertsons. Also, this version was submitted back last August. So when you all talked about this in October, this was the latest and greatest plan. As Jeff mentioned, there's certainly been a lot of iterations since we first submitted this back in February of 2019. And it was just an error, so I apologize.
Is this the version that's on the web presently, Jeff?
This would be on the web for under plans under review. Probably not. We'll get everything, and I'll work with Laura to make sure everything's up to date.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this version in our packet, or the electronic version of tonight's agenda packet?
No.
And we just got a different paper copy. Okay.
No. We'll need to update the web as well.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, shoot an email out when you do that, then we can check back in.
What, if any, coordination has been done with the current Chatham Beverage District, and how will that be accessed during this project and after this project?
That's a good point. So it's difficult to see, but the hatched in lines adjacent to the purple road coming down the street from the traffic circle, that shows sort of where that driveway is for the Beverage District. And that would be realigned to have a direct entry off of that purple line. So we have talked with Kyle or with Lyle and Tammy about that. And they understand that. I even think we might have some signed paperwork from them to that effect. But we've had a lot of interaction with them. They're great. They'd love to see something come around them that would have, provide them with being the nucleus sort of whatever might come as far as residential or mixed use. So we've had great conversations with them, and I'm actually seeing them again later this week.
Okay, great. Glad to hear that.
Any other questions?
The development agreement, you made mention, Eric, that probably through staff commentary. What's your thoughts on time frame for that and presenting to the board officially?
I think from our standpoint, we have made the edits we're going to make. I definitely think staff would, and the town attorney, I don't want to speak for them, would probably need some more time in order to review the last couple edits we made in the last 3 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. But it shouldn't take, again, I don't want to speak for them. I don't think it should take too long. It's very, very minor, one edit that we made in the last 3 weeks. So it would be up to how quickly they can fit it in their schedule that we would be ready. And Jeff, do you feel that that's accurate?
Yeah, Michael, there's a development agreement policy and guidelines of how to go, how the town will review and approve a development agreement. So we will bring that back to the board. I can send that out whenever I send out the update for the plan. Eric has this policy, and so we'd be following those guidelines.
Yeah. And so, I probably should have characterized it as when you make the official application, not present it to the board. So yeah, I know it'll go through the machinations.
And for the most part, it has already went through all those things, and we're just here. It'll go quicker now that we've presented tonight and feedback has been given. So. It could happen, in the next couple of months that this is back before you.
Any further discussion? Okay. Eric, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 6 is regarding the naming policy and the PARB. And Kyle, you might want to speak to this.
Yeah, we talked about this in our last special meeting, and we just formally approved the parks naming policy in the consent agenda today. And so what I wanted to do was particularly in regard to just generally that we will be using it now, but specifically in regards to the Vineyard Park, there's I think a time-sensitive nature to developing a name for that park that comes from the town. So what I would like to do is request that the Parks and Rec Board take on that as a test of the policy, honestly, in one way, but also take on that effort of developing name suggestions for the park that will be on Vineyard Parkway.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Any questions? Discussion?
No, I think that's an appropriate action to take and get it going.
So I would entertain a motion to ask the PARB to implement the policy that was passed tonight in the consent agenda for naming of parks, and in regards to the park on Vineyard.
I guess just before we make that motion, we should talk about the timeline overall and if what we expect for a timeline in general, and if this one would be shorter potentially than that, when we want feedback from the Parks and Rec Board specifically.
I think that depends on when the dedication of the park is going to occur and when we need to be making signage and those types of functions for the park. Jeff, do you have an idea of when that's going to happen?
No, I don't have an idea when that dedication. I think we heard at the past meeting or the last meeting that the goal is to be open in the September-October timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
And as I understand it, the Chatham Parks are going to deal with the signage issue.
What do you mean deal with the signage issue?
Well, they would put the sign up for the name of the park, and that any signage needed for the park about rules and regulations, they would put those up also.
Right. So timing. So are you saying, Bob, that the town's going to name the park and that Chatham Park is going to create the signage to put in the ground advertising the park?
As I understand it, the way they're designing the sign, if the park's not named, by the time it opens up, they have the vineyard name there, but they said they could slide it out very easily and put in the other name.
Have we seen a design? Have we seen a design for that sign?
I have not, Jeff.
Okay.
I may have seen something preliminarily, but nothing formally.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall we have, I'm not sure if they're formal standards, but we have somewhat similar designs for existing parks, correct?
We do have a theme.
I'd have to look into that. I'm not aware of that.
Well, there is a pretty substantial signage section of the additional elements for Chatham Park, so that will also be a guideline.
Okay.
But if October is the date, then it seems like we should get a name at our first meeting in September, or the latter one in August. That's quick work, but I think we could do it. I would like to think the PARB can do it.
I agree. I think in this unique case, it should be quick, and so that there's not confusion about the name of the park and that it has a name when it opens.
Well, then shall we make a motion that PARB present options? I think you said 3 options at our second meeting in August.
Was that a motion?
Making that a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Okay. Now to get back to this, we're on to old business, which is the Western Intake Partnership. Bob?
Yes, thank you. What you have before you is the first amendment to the original Western Intake Partnership Agreement. And what it addresses is the need for project management. There are quite a few steps that have to be taken before construction can begin. And the idea is that a project manager would be hired to address these steps, and that it identifies how this work would be paid for. The original 2 studies were paid for by the city of Durham, and now the cost for this program is based upon the percentages that each jurisdiction will get from Jordan Lake. What you're approving is just really the process to be used. There's no commitment at this time. If the board chooses in the future not to participate, there's language in the amendment that says what you will have to do to get back into the process. So it's really sort of a governance document for the next steps for the partnership. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Bob?
Yeah, I think, and Bob, we've talked a little bit about this, I know, but this is a little bit of me playing catch up from what was agreed to previously. But the original agreement talks about two different studies, the Hazen study and the Raftlis study.
Yes.
And I think that the major difference between those is that the Raftlis shows it being online and operational 2031. And the Hazen study is 2035 for that. So I imagine and it says that this project management agreement is based on the Hazen study, which I believe would be 2035. So I just want to be clear of what that timeline is and what this project management agreement works towards for an operational date.
Okay. I contacted the staff person of WASA, whose responsibility is to work on this partnership, and she says that truly the date certain hasn't been decided. It will be dependent upon how people analyze their need for the water, and that will affect the timeline. And so at this point in time, I don't think there is a specific target that they're shooting for. I think it would be no later than 35, but it could be earlier than 2035.
Okay. And then I think too, just from a process perspective of working in this agreement, this says that it was brought about, the proposal was submitted like February 11th. And I realize we don't have a engineer and maybe didn't have a manager at that time. But I just want to make sure that Pittsburgh is, being represented in this group and the decisions. I think this is probably where Chatham County helped us out as well. This comes as, a little bit of a surprise, and it seems that it's been in the works since at least February. And it's a pretty significant amount of money in that it's about $360,000. So what is the payment period for that $360,000?
As I understand it right now, as the contract is executed, the engineering firm would probably invoice Durham, and then Durham would invoice the jurisdictions that are participating in the study. So it would be over a period of time that money would be required. And just as a point, that the contract with the project manager would come back to all the jurisdictions to approve. So that will be looked at a second time.
So there's nothing in reference to payment at this particular point.
No, it just says how the payments will be divided.
Okay. One other question in reference to, from what I'm looking at here, it says the city of Durham is considered a declining partner. So basically will not have a cost share in this particular process or in this particular project here. Do you know why they decided to be a declining partner? Did they say?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I can find that out though.
Okay, thank you.
Where does it say that, Pamela?
It's on page 9. Well, it's even before then, but on page 9, number C, the following cost sharing formula.
Oh, in the original agreement?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a typo in the original, and it should be there's a lot of formatting errors in the original agreement, which I don't know if that matters or not, that it's approved, but I think that should be 40.74% to make up the total of 100 that's shown. I don't know why it's missing there, but on the cost, well, it doesn't come up again in the agreement, but there's a lot of formatting errors in the original agreement. But my understanding is that the agreement was already approved in 2019.
Well, and also on page, let's see, this says page 9. Also, it talks about the city of Durham being a declining partner, even on page, it still says page 9, but all of them say page 9. 1.5, right there under number 2, if the city of Durham is a declining partner, under number 2. And then it goes on to define what a declining partner is. On the next page, page 1.
I think that's in general, because typically Durham holds the contract. And so that section is talking about if Durham declines a specific project. But I think the agreement, the amendment is talking about Durham holding the contract for this project.
That's my understanding. Durham's acted as the lead agency in these contracts. And like I explained before, the invoices from the engineering firm would probably go directly to Durham. And they may also be the entity that will hold the contract with the engineering firm.
And I do understand that they hold a contract, but that's not my question. My question is about the cost share. And it plainly shows in this graph, there's no cost share to them.
I would have to follow up and get you an answer for that.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, Bob, I agree it's confusing, the formatting in general, and I'm not sure if it happened while it got sent around to get signed by 4 parties or something, but as Commissioner Baldwin was saying, there's at least 2 page numbers on each page, typically 3. There's just a lot of strange things in that original.
Okay.
And it is clear that in that table, the percentages for Chatham, Pittsburgh, and Owasso does not equal 100%. So I think Kyle, you're right. There's a missing 40.74 to Durham.
Mm-hmm. It would be great to clarify that though before we incur
yes
$1 million expense for $2.43 million.
And Kyle, where did you come up with the $360 some odd thousand?
So, yeah, what we're adding is the program management, as it indicates here, but program of $2.43 million in total. So I was basing that on Pittsburgh's percentage of 14.81%.
Yeah, 2.43 million. I'm seeing 2.1 million in what is it, Amendment 1?
The table on the last page of Amendment 1 says 243.
I'm looking at a table on page 14 of 16. Exhibit B, compensation. Oh, yeah, that's the amount that would be paid to the engineering firm.
Oh, you're looking at the exhibit that was emailed later.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking. I'm excited for electronic agenda management.
I see the 2.43.
Yeah, so I think what we're doing is authorizing up to 2.43, but the contract that they're might enter into is only going to be 2.1. But I mean, according to this amendment, we're agreeing to up to 2.43?
I think I guess the agreement would have already been for 2.43. The amendment caps it at 2.126. Because it says maximum total dollars.
I mean, I don't know anything about this other than reading it. So I don't know if anybody on staff has any clarity that they could help us with this. But
I guess the point is, well, there is a substantial difference between 314,000 and 367,000, granted. But either way, those are two big numbers. And I think this task 1 is going to be a 3-year time frame. So does that mean we need to allocate $100,000 per year to cover this? Is that the way it's going to be billed? It'd be good to know if we could get to the bottom of that as well, Bob.
Like I said, in my communication with the Owasso representative, the anticipation is that the contract will be paid out as work is completed. And so it's anticipated that the towns would be invoiced. I couldn't see a situation where the towns would be asked to pay up front. But again, we will have to approve the contract and we will have to agree to participate before, that would be the next step.
and just so 2 things there. I don't know, but Mr. Morgan, do you provide that scope of services to all the commissioners?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. So that does just talk about the first 3 years, it seems like. So it's approximately 133,000 a year for Pittsburgh, and that doesn't get us to even a design consultant at that point. So
that's right.
I think we almost have to stay engaged in this process to get water in the future, but I would appreciate, a little more, I think in general, right, like a little heads up about this process. It seems like it's been moving since February. I think what we would be voting on tonight is just the 2-page amendment that's on the back of the packet, and then the contract.
That's correct.
That's what I understand, yeah.
And so then I guess that would be for the 2.43 million, even though we know now that it may not take that to complete.
Is there further discussion?
Can I get confirmation on this? So in the contract, it's 2.43 million. This language in addendum 1 says the added program management project. Does that mean we're talking about over $600,000 or $6 million? Sorry, 5 million?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing at the bottom of that table, the very back of the printed packet that was included in our packet for the meeting tonight, which is the back page of Amendment 1, a number 7.43. Total 7.43.
Correct. I think the original agreement, I guess page 1.6, yeah, it's already approved to spend and pay for 5 million, and this would be an amendment to increase that to 7.43 million.
Okay.
That's how I would see it also.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Mr. Morgan, forgive me if we've already discussed this, there's with all the confusion over the formatting errors and such, but do we have a sense of the urgency or the immediacy of this, the need for this approval?
We've been, all the jurisdictions have been asked to go ahead and process it. I know that Owasso has addressed it and Chatham County has. I don't think there's a critical date that this has to be done, but if the board needs to delay it to August the 10th and I get some additional information, I'll be glad to do that. I don't think that's critical.
Well,
Did I understand, Bob, that the county has already approved this?
It was on their, Dan says yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can Dan would like to add to the conversation?
Sure.
If please the board, I could just maybe I could help clarify because we just did this last week as well. So Commissioner Fiocco, I think you're right. It was the original agreement was $5 million for the total project, and then this amendment adds the 2.43 for project management for HDR engineering to that.
And then HDR scope says a maximum of 212 or something along those lines.
Which is, I mean, they put in 2.43 in the table on the amendment, so I'm not sure why that difference in that. I can't put my hands on it right now, but the version I had before did show Durham's share.
Yeah.
To your point, Commissioner Baldwin, I believe the agreement, the one I have doesn't have a lot of formatting issues that I had with the county. And it says, what it really clarifies for Durham is if they are a declining member.
Okay.
Then they're not the lead agency. They're trying to make sure that if they decline, that someone else has to take the lead. So that was my reading of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. And that was my reading also. But when I saw that cost share with nothing in there.
Yeah, that's strange.
That was strange, I thought. I was like, well, how can... So, yes.
Yeah, because I know Durham's the highest percentage, and they were 40-some%, and then we're next at 32.10, and it's based on allocation from the lake.
Yeah.
Right.
And to Mr. Morgan's point too, the Durham had footed the bill for a number of these studies along the way as the leading partner in this and the leading demand in the plant as well. So now we're all sharing some of that cost.
Bob, I think it'd be great if we could get a clean document that would remove some of these questions.
You're talking about the amendment document or the original document?
The amendment document in particular, I don't recall there being a gap in Durham's portion, a cost share. I don't recall there being a blank space there.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's see if this document is somehow been changed. You know, computers will do that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. I will do that.
Okay.
Commissioner Fiocco, can you mention that again? My internet froze. What you're asking him to do?
Oh, just to see if we've got a clean version of these documents that don't have any of the formatting issues that seem to be leaving us in doubt as to what it contains.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The odd thing is that the copy that we have on the original agreement is the signed agreement.
Yeah.
You know, so I was fairly confident that that was the last document or revision of it. But the only thing that you're considering tonight is the amendment number 1. We've already signed off on the original agreement.
Yes.
Looking back at the April 22, 2019 materials, it does show 40.74 for them. That's it's properly formatted, so I'm not sure what happened. I think as it got passed around to every city to sign, it likely.
My guess too. But tonight, but the issue before us, if I understand it correctly, Bob, is this amendment.
That's correct. That's the only thing we're looking at.
So we can either approve the amendment, not approve the amendment, or table the amendment till August 10th. Those are the three options.
Well, it would be helpful to know why 2.43 is in the table and 2.12 is in the maximum number for the engineering firm doing the work. It'd be helpful to know that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll find out. The only thing I could come up is they put a contingency in there.
Right.
But I'll be glad to try to find that out.
Okay.
Do we know when Durham plans to take this up? This says that they were intending to enter the contract at their same meeting they take up this MOA.
I don't have any information on that.
Okay, I don't want to hold it. I think this is good to get clarification. I want to be clear to the group, the Western Intake Partnership, that we're not declining this. We're just looking for more information and not.
Yes. Agreed.
Dan, did you find out something?
Yes, so Chatham approved it on 7/20. Durham has it on their 8/3 council meeting agenda. Owasso approved it at 6/11.
Yeah.
And then they had Pittsburgh. They're not sure if their council had approved or not, is what I had.
Okay.
So if that helps the status of where everyone else is.
And Owasso was June 11th, you said?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, okay. Do we all receive it at the same time? I mean, I'm just wondering why they approved it at the beginning of June and we're just seeing it now, under the gun now.
Well, they about 6 weeks ago they sent around a draft of the amendment, and I had Paul Messick and I looked at it and we didn't have any questions, so we told the management team that we were generally okay with it, and then they came back to us and said, well, go ahead now and take it through to your councils. And the Owasso individual is very active in this participation, and so she tends to be on top of things, and so she brought it to us very quickly. And we're only like 1 week behind the county.
But potentially headed 3 weeks behind them is my other thing. But
I don't think that's a big deal if you all want to get that information straight.
I mean, it's fine to postpone the thing, but to me, I can't imagine that there's any information that you're all going to receive in the next 2 weeks that's going to cause you to not vote for this amendment.
I agree, Jim. And
I mean,
I'd like to get the information, but I can appreciate where we are. I think we do need to stay engaged.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Bob, it would be appreciated though if we understood why the numbers were a little different and what's going on, because I think you're right. It may very well be simply a contingency issue.
Yeah, I know one thing in talking with staff at Owasso, that one of the things that the management group did was they went back and renegotiated the contract with the engineering firm and told them to sharpen their pencils a little bit. And so that might be the difference too.
Yeah. Yep.
I still would appreciate those things to be clarified. I don't like approving something which is not clear. And this is
Agreed.
not clear to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think an important feature of this agreement is the role that the management team plays, and we will have a seat on that team. And I think, Chris, it'll fall to you to select the appropriate representative from Pittsburgh to attend to those meetings and participate.
I don't get the sense that Pittsburgh's been that active in the past.
Yeah, and that's what I want to clarify. We do have a seat now. I don't think we've been.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All
May I
right.
ask if that is a board of commissioner or a staff member position?
I think it's a staff position.
I think it's, yeah, staff. as
Staff.
well.
For lack of a better answer, I'll just say I'll be that person.
Okay. All right,
Thank you
next
for
item,
volunteering.
next item, Bob, is Water Quality Task Force.
Yes, the board asked for this to be placed on the agenda so you could discuss whether you needed to extend the time frame for the task force. I believe it was a request by Cal and approved by the mayor.
Yes.
Yes, I just noted that when we originally created the task force, it was set to expire at the latest June 30th. And so it technically is expired now. And I just want to make sure we bring it back and talk through, their accomplishments and see what we need from them, and how long we should extend that for. I didn't attend the water quality task force meeting maybe 2 weeks ago now, the last one they had, I believe. And there's progress being made, and still some work to do. So I'm curious what the board thinks about that.
I think we were supposed to receive a final report from them on the 30th, and I'm interested to get that final document. And I guess if the board has expired it, I would, I guess, be interested in extending their term until they're able to complete their final report. I think it is important work. I think one of the most important things we did recently was deal with the DEQ Greensboro special order of consent. Bob, thanks for leading a charge in that letter, and thanks to Bill Holland for kind of giving us the initial draft. That was very helpful, and honestly learned a lot of things in that special order of consent that I was unaware of. I had no idea that DEQ and Greensboro were working so hard on testing since 2015. That would have been good information to have. Didn't know it. Glad to hear that it's ongoing. And so I am in support of asking the task force to finalize the report. And then I think we can decide at that time, what else to do with the task force, if anything.
I do think you need a sunset date at some point.
I would say I'd like to see if they can wrap this up by our next meeting, no later than the second meeting in August.
Okay.
I mean, they had a June 30 time frame on it before, so.
Yeah, I think at least my recollection was we were hoping and expecting that by June 30, we would have some preliminary results from the pilot scale demonstration of various filtration technologies at our water plant, the CDM Smith work. And I had great hopes that body would help us digest that preliminary report. Not to feed it to us, but to help us gain a sense of public sentiment regarding the subject matter that I think is going to come forward. I'm pretty sure we're going to see one or a couple of those technologies showing superior results. And then the question will be cost and the second question, I think we can anticipate is reverse osmosis and the resulting effluent, the concentrate that comes out of a reverse osmosis system, puts all of those toxics into a waste stream. And, if that's the superior technology, how does the public feel about that? How does the water quality, how does the water quality task force feel about that? I'd very much appreciate having feedback from that body once we get to that point. So I'm thinking it's more like 3 to 6 months.
I would point out that CDM Smith has indicated to me that they would recommend that we extend the testing to 8 months. So August, I think, is the 6th month. So we'll be there another 3 months of work on that. They want to get some more data on the testing before they make a recommendation.
We are still getting an update at the August 10th meeting, though, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Well, that makes sense because we've also heard before and seen data showing that there's significant seasonal variation in the flows of the perfluorinated and polyfluorinated toxics. So the longer the pilot scale trial runs, the better our data. And I would point out that the really important thing, crucial thing here is that that trial of various filtration technologies is going to tell us two things. It's going to tell us, number one, the effectiveness of removing the toxics to produce good, clean, healthy drinking water. But it's also going to give us operational costs of those technologies, some estimate of what it costs to treat our very water source, our individual cocktail of water with pollutants. And understanding that will be crucial to making long-term plans for not just the capital investment, but the operational costs of this expanded water treatment plant.
I believe once we've gotten the report, we can extend it until they have presented us with a report. And once we've gotten the report and review that, they will make a decision as to whether or not we need to extend the water quality task force and for how long, and what their particular charge is in terms of what they are supposed to do and report back to us.
So their original commission has expired as of June 30th, and we do need to extend it even to have them operate now to give us a final report on work that's already been done.
Right.
So if we are expecting the CDM Smith project to finish up, what month would that be, Mr. Morgan?
I believe October would be the last month.
Should we expect some time frame for wrap up of the report, or are they going to have the report ready to go and plug the numbers in and then send it?
I would imagine they would have a period of time after the testing's done where they would put the report together. And then the task force would have to read that, ask questions, and then make recommendations.
So I think
you're probably looking at 6 months.
So I think that is that's obviously a change from what we were expecting, but I understand the need to get it right as well. I do think that the task of the task force was largely distinct from the pilot plant testing, in that the pilot plant testing is a method of evaluating future treatment options. But there is a lot of other activities that we tasked the task force with. I'd be in favor of a short interval to allow them to complete the report. I imagine there'll be some gap between that time and when we get the report from CDM Smith, it sounds like now. And then once we have that report, I think we might create some more focused task forces, potentially multiple, to address specific areas. I think another thing I noticed, or just we know from operating virtually as well, when we created that board, we thought they would be in-person meetings. It gives a little more flexibility, and I think the size of the group makes it difficult to do, to work most effectively, honestly, in that large of a group, where smaller groups focused on specific outcomes from the board based on the original report and based on the study results might benefit us going forward.
I think we ought to ask the task force, give them a amount of time to finish a final report based upon where they're at right now. And once the CD Smith testing is done and that report's out, I think this board can then decide that whether or not we want that task force, or whether we want to use some other mechanisms to gather comments regarding the report from CD Smith. There are various ways that could be asking the task force, but maybe outside of the task force, asking other groups to chime in. Anyway, to me, that's wide open. I think the immediate concern for the board, in my recommendation, would be that we set some time frame that's reasonable to ask the task force to get us a final report based upon the work that they've done up to this point in time. And then this board make a further decision about what they want to do with the CD Smith report when we get it, and whether the water quality task force comment. To me,
Jim, you broke up quite a bit there.
I'm sorry.
At the end.
Yeah, showing is unstable. Is this any better? I just said I thought there was two things. The first thing would be that the water quality task force be given a time by this board to file a final report based upon the work that they've done up to now. And once the CD Smith testing and report is in 3 months or 4 months or whatever it was, this board can then make a decision as to whether they want that same task force to review and comment on that report from CD Smith, or whether you want that plus some other folks involved. At any rate, I think tonight the decision that the board ought to make is whether to ask this task force to, within a month or whatever time frame they think is appropriate, provide a final report based upon the work that they've done to date.
That's what I was referring to. Thank you all for clarifying that, so everyone understand what I was specifically saying.
Yeah.
I was talking about their report.
Right.
Give the task force enough time to complete their report, which I think you had indicated maybe a week or two, that the report to us. And then, just as you have stated, Kyle, as well as Jim, go forward with determining whether or not, who's going to look at the CD Smith report, or is it going to be the same task force, or whatever their charge will be.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I was thinking along the same lines. I'll make a motion that we extend the task force period until, and provide a report detailing their work to date, and present that for the Board of Commissioners meeting on the second meeting in August.
Okay.
It gives them probably about a month to wrap it up.
Right. Is there a second?
I'll second. I do have just one question, though. I don't see anybody here from the Water Quality Task Force. Is there anybody on that could speak to time frame? Okay. I just wanted to clarify before we settle something, but I think a month is reasonable.
Right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 3, 4. Pamela, you were?
Aye. Yeah.
Jay, aye. Kyle, aye. Michael, aye. right?
I'll cast a vote in opposition because all along I had expected that this water quality task force would be helping us with their take, their understanding, their interpretation of the CDM Smith report on the pilot scale project. I regret that I didn't have that in their original commission documents. That was an oversight because I really did fully expect that that was going to be a part of this work. And I think that it would still be wise of us to ask a large body, such as the 16-member Water Quality Task Force, to give us a response, because it will, as I mentioned, not only involve technical health-related matters, but also very important financial questions and potentially even the moral question of how does this town feel about putting toxics back into the waste stream to go downstream.
John, I
oppose the motion.
Okay.
And
I just would point out that this motion does not preclude in any way, shape, or form the Water Quality Task Force being involved in helping us understand and deal with the CDM Smith report.
I'm very glad to hear that.
So the motion passes 4-1. The next item on the agenda is the disconnection and late fees issue.
Yeah, I would ask Heather Meacham to discuss this with the board.
Hi, good evening. So I wanted to bring this up again because the governor's executive order is going to expire at the end of the month regarding his disconnection and late fee order. So I wanted to find out how the board was feeling about the order that they have in place. And as I put in the memo, we have approximately 74 customers that are more than a month, that have more than 1 month past due. And the balance is around maybe a little bit over $9,000 total with those 74 customers. A lot of those customers, the balance is not, it's probably less than $200 that is past due. We have a few that are getting close to, 800, up at the higher end. And those are the ones that I'm sort of concerned about, that if we keep letting them get that far past due without getting them to pay a little bit of something, setting a payment plan up, that they're just going to get so far behind that it's going to take them years to get caught up again, just based on their history and what we believe that they would be able to pay. So I guess my recommendation to the board would be that we allow late fees and disconnections to go back into effect, but that we would be working with all the customers that have a current past due balance, just like we always have. I mean, if we have a customer that is unable to pay, we work with them and we can set up a payment plan. For these customers, we are obligated to set up a payment plan of at least 6 months. And some of them will probably be longer just to make it manageable, especially the ones that have the higher balances. So we are obligated to allow them 6 months to pay it back in a payment plan. And some of them, but we would work with the customer to make sure that it worked within their budget. I just think that we kind of need to get them working towards that rather than getting farther behind. So, but I'll open it up for discussion and questions.
Heather, the governor's order, I think, says that you've got to try to get payment arrangements with folks. And if you can't come to terms, it's going to be at least 6 months.
Correct. Yeah.
And in that 6 months time frame, no late fees are accruing. But after that, the late fees would start to accrue. Is that correct?
Correct, as long as they are adhering to the payment arrangements. If they do not, like, so say they don't make a payment that they were supposed to make under the payment arrangement, then they can be charged late fees or disconnection fees and be disconnected.
And I guess that payment plan requires them to reach a zero balance with their outstanding balance.
So the payment, right, so the governor did not, I mean, there's no standard payment plan, you know, that he has dictated. It just says that, but the I guess general practice is that you would take, you know, so you would take their outstanding balance from the prior months and divide it by, say, 6. And so then they're going to have to pay an extra $20, $30 on top of their regular bill. So they still have to pay their regular monthly bill, and now they're going to have to pay a little bit extra to get caught up.
Yeah, somebody with that $800 bill is going to have to pay quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that bill, the $800 bill, I mean, we're going to have to split that up over more than 6 months
Right.
to make it feasible for that customer. And that's where we will work with the customers to make it feasible. It might take a while. And unfortunately, that customer, she had already gotten caught up and right before this hit, and then she just hasn't been paying. So.
Good to the restaurant.
And I would add, I think we need to give folks, say, 30 days notice that we're going to implement a new policy.
Yes, yes. So the way that I would recommend doing it is that I would send out letters at the beginning of August for all the ones that we know have late balances, and let them know that we're going to set up payment arrangements. They need to contact us and fill out. We have payment arrangement forms. They need to fill those out, and I wouldn't propose charging late fees until, you know, our normal September 20th late fee timeframe. I wouldn't charge late fees in August still. We would still have a window for people to get back into the swing of things.
And we would say that as long as they're adhering to the payment plan, there would not be accruing late fees.
Correct, yes.
And right now we're thinking the governor's order says 6 months, we would do 6 months, but in fact we could extend it beyond 6 months.
Yeah, sort of on a case-by-case basis for the ones with the larger balances. And that's also what the School of Government was recommending, was that if you, so say you said balances, past due balances that were between, say, 0 and, or I mean, you know, less than $500, you give them 6 months. Anything over than $500, you give them, you know, 9 months or 12 months. You give them a different date, but treat everybody in that group the same.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm really empathetic to folks who are struggling. It's, you know, especially the story of someone who finally gets free of debt and then rolls it back up. You know, feel for that person. So I appreciate that approach, that we could do it in classes, if you will. Or, you know, if you owe, you know, less than 500, then you've got 6 months. If you owe more than 500, you've got a year. I think it'd be really helpful.
Yep.
I think that's a good idea also, Heather.
I think it's a good idea. My only reservation is that some of those individuals may still not be working.
Yes.
I don't see how they're going to pay the current water bill in addition to a payment plan amount. That would be my only reservation.
Yes.
So I do think it would be good to do a payment plan, because that gives them an opportunity to avoid disconnection. But I know some people are still struggling in terms of just getting food. So I don't foresee them being able to pay, be on a payment plan in addition to making their regular payment.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can work with them on a case by case basis. And we
Okay.
have had a few people that even though we've been waiving the fees for everybody, they have still contacted us just to let us know that they are not, that they don't have a job, or that they're, they've given us a reason for why they're not paying.
Okay.
That's maybe a handful out of all the people that are not paying. So, but we would continue to work with the customers on making sure that, because we do not enjoy cutting them off. We really don't want to. We don't want to be charging late fees. And so, we would work with them, and then we would be able to maybe point them in the direction of some of the organizations that are helping out. So we do get sponsorships from the Salvation Army. We'll pay somebody's bill sometimes, and different organizations like that, and we can then point those customers in that direction.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baldwin.
I would still be very concerned in this time of going to the point of, even if they're failing in their payment plan, of cutting them off. I think it's a really dangerous, it is right now dangerous. Hopefully a year from now it's not.
Yes.
But I don't think we should cut anybody off.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiocco, and thank you, Commissioner Baldwin. I'm feeling very much the same way. I think that, I'm just mindful of the fact that this is a once in a 100-year event. There are people who are just absolutely devastated financially, and water is literally life. And the ability to wash hands when you get home, take a shower, is so crucial to the basic advice that we've been given by public health authorities. So I'm very reluctant to authorize cutoffs. Even Ms. Meacham, I very much appreciate and hear your passion that you really do want to work with folks. I just am reluctant to get to that point. And what I really wish that we had is, and I know we don't have this at our fingertips, but I wish that we had some actual numbers on remaining unemployment in our town limits. What is the unemployment rate? And I haven't gone to look for that statewide even, and I doubt that such data exists for Chatham County, but it's possible that it exists in an aggregated form. I personally feel like I would need that in order to authorize you, Ms. Meacham, with the tool that you're asking for. And I understand your need to keep us balanced, and the very compelling need to remind these folks that this is not something that they can continue to let go, especially if they're back to work. But I'm wondering if we can do that with some good informal small town letters, maybe a form letter to those with the greatest balances. I'm not sure.
I think we might be able to do something that if an individual is paying, then they would not be disconnected, and loosely define what we mean by paying, because I do understand the whole that people are getting in, and it's not, at some point it's a disservice to allow that whole maybe as well. But if somebody's paying $5 a month because that's what they can afford at this time, then I don't think that we should disconnect them. And I would also suggest, I guess, if we could actively send out with that letter talking about this new policy of some local organizations that we know that we would refer people to if they are having trouble. I know that the VFW is one for local veterans, and we help out where we can. So I think those organizations are really tapped now as well. But rather than waiting for someone to get into more trouble, call and then talk through those options, if we could actually provide those options, because it's likely not just the water bill that people are having trouble with.
Yes.
Other areas as well. So we could, as a community service, also provide that information where people might be able to get additional help.
Yes, I mean, I can include those as in the form letter that we send out to the customers.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Heather, could you work up a conceptual payment plan that we just discussed, kind of like the different classes?
Yep.
That'd be great. And then we could, well, I think, yeah, we want to definitely enter into payment plans. Bob, you said 30-day notice, so that would give us time to think about any concept that comes up if we have to make it a policy.
All right, what I'm not clear about is whether the board's giving us direction to discontinue the program in 30 days and set up the payment plan. I hear some reservations, so I'm just asking for clarification.
I don't say discontinue the program, but I like the idea of sending that letter, what you're talking about, what you're talking about, Mr. Morgan, and you too, Ms. Meacham, in reference to the customers, and advise them, of course, that there certainly will be coming in the future a payment plan option, and also those different agencies which can assist those individuals in terms of their water bill and different areas as well. So I think that is a good idea. I don't want to necessarily stop the program right now, but I do want to go on and give them a heads up that it will be ending more than likely within the near future. And there is this option of a payment plan and options of trying to seek assistance, things such as that, and that the town of Pittsburgh will definitely work with you on that.
Pam, how long would you like to see us extend the program?
Well, you know, our cases are still increasing, so I would definitely like to extend it at least 30 more days for sure.
And revisit it in
Yes.
30 days. Yep.
Yes.
I'd make that motion.
And I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to commissioner concerns before we go into closed session.
Actually,
Mayor, I think we added a number 4 under old business.
Yes.
Mr. Bonnet.
Oh, I'm sorry. We most certainly did. Yes, absolutely. We moved something off the consent agenda. Yes, we did indeed. I thought I had, yeah, this is the
System development fees.
yeah, the system development fee. Yeah.
So this is a budget amendment for reimbursement for system development fees associated with the park off Vineyard Road in the Vineyard neighborhood. And at prior meetings, we have talked about the operational costs, maintenance, taking care of that park. And I suppose that it's an agreement that for some amount of time that there would be a reimbursement of costs for that maintenance. That I think one vision was that the town would actually do that maintenance and Chatham Park investors would reimburse the town. Given that the development of this park is not necessarily on our time frame and hasn't really been worked into our budgets, I think that's appropriate. And I just think that I would like for us to have that be put in writing. And one idea was to have that in the additional element. But the time frame for that agreement to run That would be important. And, you know, basically, I'm just asking myself, why now? Why would be reimbursing for system development fees at this moment in time when in our last budget, we actually started tapping into reserve funds?
The board, as I remember, authorized or agreed to reimburse Chatham Park Incorporated for these development fees. And so that's why we put it on the consent agenda.
Mhm.
And the only way that we can reimburse them is out of the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do it out of the water and sewer fund.
Right.
I agree that we did that, and I think, you know, based on that this will be a town park, I think there is a lot of cans that we kicked down the road specifically related to this park. We started to tackle the name this evening, but there's, you know, when the town will actually take over the land, which would mean that then Chatham Park would stop paying taxes, I guess, on that. And then the maintenance agreement, how many years, what that looks like, rules for the dog park. You know, some of those are more pressing than others based on the timeline that's been provided to us. So I think there's a lot of work to happen, and I'm not sure where that all falls. But specifically related to system development fees, I do agree with covering those in this case. Obviously, if everything falls apart and this becomes, you know, this is a private park later, then we will have to work that out. But I think we're all of the understanding this will be a town park.
So at what point will we codify in writing any of these details about operational costs, maintenance?
It's something that the staff needs to start working on a memorandum of understanding. At the same meeting that we were talking to before, Chatham Park made some offers, and the staff needs to decide if that's, you know, feasible for the town to take it over that quickly, bring a recommendation back to the board. And I would imagine that's going to take a minimum of 30 days to bring back to the board.
And Mr. Bonds, this is Chris. It's already on my radar to try to navigate something with the representatives of Chatham Park. Obviously, Bob's been very helpful in kind of onboarding me in some of these things. And while I'm not 100% there, I've already had my wheels kind of spinning and turning on that to hopefully try to get something in place that is amenable to both sides. But certainly recognizing the fact that the current conditions aren't really conducive to Pittsburgh taking over that park in the near future and maintaining 100%. So some of it's going to be educating myself on kind of the existing expectations on both sides. But it's one of the top things on my to-do list. So I'm more than ready to take that on.
Well, as I understand this item is to just simply carry out the decision of the board from when was last meeting or thereabouts through a budget amendment so that the money can, as Bob said, can only come out of the general fund. It can't come out of another. Is that correct, Bob?
That's correct.
Well, this is an opportunity for us to pause and make sure that we do have an agreement about the future operational maintenance costs of that park. Who'll do what and when and for how long. In prior discussions, Commissioner Shipp had envisioned one fiscal year extending after installation or commissioning of the splash pad part of the park, which is the last part of that park to come on. And my hope is that we would have at least one, preferably 2 solid years of maintenance costs to look at so that we can work that into our annual budget. And so, yeah, I just don't want us to let too much time go by on this. And so I'm glad we're taking a pause to talk about it right now.
Well, I do think that the issues that Commissioner Bonnet raises in terms of the operation of the park are very important issues, and perhaps a time ought to be set aside for us at a board meeting coming up in the not too distant future to delve into that in some depth and give the staff advance notice so that they can prepare a set of information and a set of recommendations for this board to form the basis of a discussion. And I think that would be a very not only useful but essential step. I think the agenda item before us is quite simply a budget amendment to implement the decision made by this board prior. And so I would think maybe 2 things here. One, approve the budget amendment, and secondly, set a date for perhaps not next board meeting, but the one after that. So that put together a package and a presentation for the board to consider and look for the ongoing operational aspects that Commissioner Bonnet is rightfully concerned in talking about. So this, if this board was amenable to that, we could vote on the budget amendment and then ask the staff to prepare for presentation or discussion for an agenda item at our second meeting in August to discuss the operational aspects of this park going forward. And I think that would give Mr. Kennedy an opportunity to work with staff and this whole issue as well.
I agree with that, and I would make that motion with the small edit that this would be repaid if for some reason it doesn't become a town park.
Yes.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. All right. Now, and I gather the sentiment of the board is that we would ask the town manager, Mr. Morgan for now and Mr. Kennedy soon, to have staff prepare and be ready at our second meeting in August to discuss with the board the operational aspects going forward of this park. Is that, am I reading the sentiment of the board correctly?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
All right. So the
Thank you, Chris.
so the second item would be the last item, then the commissioner concerns before we go into closed session.
I think we missed something.
What did we miss?
Weren't we going to appoint Arab members?
Yes, thank you.
We did appoint one in the consent
We
agenda,
appointed one on the consent agenda.
but we have
Well-
missed Sarah Carr in that process.
And that's a reappointment.
Correct.
So
Open to a motion.
I move that,
But we appointed a park member in our consent agenda.
I move that we reappoint Sarah Carr to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
There a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, I
Unanimous.
have to admit that my packet did not include in the consent agenda.
No, it wasn't in there.
Yeah.
It was sent out today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's the one of, there were 2 items added to the consent agenda that went out today. Item 9 and 10.
Okay. I missed that.
So just to be clear, 9 was the appointment of Ryan Ford to the Parks and Rec Board.
Okay.
He's taking over a position, and then 10 was the policy for naming the town parks.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so commissioner concerns, any? Start with Mr. Farrell.
Maybe this just for Jeff Jones, maybe an update on the Eagles. I know construction seems to be stopped out there. I haven't seen anything going on in numerous weeks.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrell. That was one of my items too. Thank you, Jay.
Okay. And also the Deaton property on Main Street, what the status is of it.
That was the big,
shit, what is it called? Damn. Sorry. French Connection.
Next door. Yeah. Next door to French Connection.
Yes, yes, just a status on it.
Jeff Jones is not on here, I don't think. I think he left.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get that out to you.
It's on Bob's list now.
Great. And at one point, specifically on the Eagles, is construction in general, but that sidewalk has been closed off since they started with the construction fence there. And I think they might be at a point now where they could open it up and adjust their fence, or if we could get them there. As we see in our pedestrian plan, we lack sidewalk in general. And so that's a pretty critical piece there that's been closed for a long time.
Commissioner Fiocca, any?
Yeah, actually I've got a long list. And they do not have to be answered tonight, but during our budget discussion, we talked about the gallons of water being produced was increasing, yet our revenue wasn't matching that. And we talked about doing a water loss study and wondering if there's been any progress on that.
There has not.
Okay. If we could, I think that's important, try to figure out, because, you know, years ago we were told 25% of our water that was being produced wasn't a revenue source. So it was going somewhere other than to a meter that was documenting its use, whether it be leaky pipes or, you know, unmetered water. But it was disturbing to hear that was increasing the difference between how much was being produced and how much was showing up as revenue. I know we have in our budget some I&I remediation, wondering if we've kicked that off and started to do anything on that front.
The ones in this year's budget we haven't started on.
Okay.
I believe we have one that was under last year's budget, and it's being worked on.
Yeah,
I'll bring you an update next week.
Okay, appreciate it, Bob. I just know how quickly a year will go by, and as if we start attacking things early in the fiscal year, we're likely to get results. I like the fact that we put together that letter on the special order of consent. One of the things I was frustrated that none of my comments were able to get into the letter. One of the things in particular is the idea of testing. And what was stated in the special order of consent was the idea that there was going to be daily testing and daily reporting. I took that to mean that you could have test results within the same day and that you would test it and then you'd be able to tell folks downstream that day, reporting of the test results. I know that we were told earlier that from Adam that that was not a likely scenario because we were asking to be notified when a slug was coming our way so that we could adjust for it. So I may have misunderstood the agreement with DEQ and Greensboro for daily reporting and daily testing. Like they may test today and report the results of that a week from now, whereas the results that they published today were from a test a week previously. So do we know that they would be testing and reporting the results of the same day?
We don't know that as a fact. No.
Yeah. And with that thinking, it said that within 6 months, if it was a clean slate, that they would then go to testing once a week. Did some rough calculations, and I think it takes a drop of water anywhere from 1 day to 4 days to get from Greensboro to Pittsburgh, depending upon the weather. And that was where I introduced the idea that you wouldn't reduce testing to once a week, but 3 times a week. That'd be more than cutting the testing in half and still give us a likely, a good probability that we would detect something that we would then be able to react to. So if we are given the opportunity again, I would like to really stress trying to get additional testing in there than just once a week after 6 months of a clean slate.
All right.
I strongly support that. Thank you, Commissioner Fiocco.
My pleasure. The other thing, in the past, we have gotten a budget binder. I know we're not meeting in person, but I've got those things on my desk and they're very helpful. Would like to soon be able to get one of those.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. Commissioner Baldwin? Concerns?
I don't have any concerns offhand, but I would like to make the comment about the letter that was written to DEQ. I thought that was an excellent letter, Mr. Morgan. And I was very, very pleased with that. Well written and to the point. I just can't express to you how good that letter was.
Well, I had a lot of help, and as I said, I used the first letter from
Bill
Quality Task Force, and so and I had some really good input from other people. So, but
well, it was good all the way around to me. Thank you. And it's a very important letter, and to let DEQ know that we are concerned. We're thankful that you're working with Greensboro. I just think it was very good. And everyone that was concerned did a good job.
And the Chatham County also sent a letter to DEQ about it, just to let you know.
Commissioner Bonnet?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and as I mentioned, I do share concerns about the Eagles delays and would love to know if there are causes for construction delays, and I'd very much appreciate staff asking directly the Eagles Development Corporation, because it would be good to know if there's anything that this board can do to help them reach completion or to clean it up, and as Commissioner Shipp said, open that sidewalk. And another thing that I'm very mindful of is staff's extensive efforts to work with the applicant when they were an applicant to make improvements, aesthetic improvements, architectural details that blend with the downtown aesthetics. And unfortunately, the red gas canopy that has shown up behind the building is visible all the way from the courthouse circle, our historic courthouse circle. And it's really too bright. It's really quite a sore thumb. And it is very much out of sync with the architectural renderings, the conceptual drawings that this board was shown. And I do hope that that very fine attention to aesthetic detail will be present in the final construction. And I hope that they will reconsider the coloring of that canopy.
All right.
Another minor detail, I'm understanding from the Chatham Forest HOA that there's been communications with town staff about some storm drains that are apparently nearly plugged up with sedimentation or dirt. And at the end of Chatham Mill Road, can staff please get this scheduled and communicate with that HOA as to when this gets done?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, if there's nothing else, then I would, yes, Commissioner Schick.
Yeah, I've got a couple, thanks. I share Jay's interest in the Deacon property and also the Marlowe property, 423 Hillsborough. I'm gonna have to talk to Jeff about those properties quite a bit. He did indicate that either the property owner or the town would mow the Marlowe property by the end of the week. So I think that'll be a big improvement. We could potentially bale it and donate it to a farmer at this point. But overall, I'm concerned about what we're able to do in terms of enforcement of, particularly abandoned and unsafe properties. And I would like to, focus some work on there, but at a minimum, we should be making sure that those abandoned properties are mowed. And I know that the town is working on that, so I appreciate it. Also, not a concern, but some praise. I reached out to Shorty this week, and I found a website that I had a note from way back about a place for people to exchange, if they're selling on Craigslist or Facebook or something, a place to meet and exchange money and goods safely. So I asked him about doing that at the town hall, and he actually indicated that we had already worked on that and had a sign in hand, and I believe that the sign is up now. I think I saw it there, Chief. So it's not listed on the website quite yet, but there's a website called Safe Trade Spots where people can go look and see where to safely meet to sell items. And the closest one right now is Apex or Sanford. So it'll be nice to have that option in Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Chief Johnson.
Great. Okay. Well, if there's, I think that's it for Commissioner concerns. So if there's nothing else, I would, at this point, entertain a motion to go into closed session. We will need to then click on the link for the closed session. And then at the end of the closed session, go back into open to adjourn the meeting as a whole. So as I said, I would entertain a motion. Oh, and the other question is, do you all need like a 5-10 minute break before we go into closed? Okay, let's say 5 to 7 minutes. And
Okay. Yeah, if it's 10, you might not see me again.
Right. Try for 5. If it's 7, we'll wait a bit. And then, so I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session and come back in 5 to 7 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you. See you on the other side.
Thank you.
Good night. See you later.